Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing well. So today I thought I would do something a little bit different, and today I am going to talk about some of my favourite things that I have accumulated, experienced, watched, listened to in the last few months. This is my summer favourites video, so all the things I've loved between June and August of this year. I feel like in these grim lockdown COVID times, it's nice to spread a little bit of positivity and just talk about things that we've been really loving and that have been getting us through this quite frustrating, sad time. So yeah, I've got a combination of books, of like beauty and fashion, of YouTube videos that I've really loved, and film and TV. Though not so much on the film and TV because we've really not been watching that much film and TV in the last few months. So I'll start off with what you've all probably come here for, which is books. And I've narrowed it down to two, and I have to say the two best books that I've read in the last 3 months have been Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo and Matilda, Empress, Queen, Warrior by Catherine Hanley. Like, who could have guessed that these books were here? Could you? Could you? Which is quite nice because we've got one fiction and one non-fiction here, I think representing my taste in books quite nicely. And I did do a full review of Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo on my channel, so I will link that down below for you. But this is just an absolutely brilliant and funny book about the life of 74-year-old Barrington Walker. He was originally born in Antigua but emigrated to the UK with his wife Carmel back in the Windrush generation. And it's basically the story of him plucking up the courage to finally divorce his wife Carmel so that he can spend the rest of his remaining days with his best friend Morris, with whom he has been in a relationship with for 50-60 years at this point, but his wife does not know. It's a story about coming to terms with your identity. It's a story about assimilation and immigration and the ways in which attitudes of people around you can really take a toll on how you perceive yourself. As I say, it's also just brilliantly funny because Barry is just such a hilarious, witty character. And it's really his narration and the way that he sees the world that is really the star of the show. So I highly recommend that you pick this book up. Matilda, Empress, Queen, Warrior by Catherine Hanley tells the life of Empress Matilda, born in 1102 as the daughter of Henry I and Matilda of Scotland. She was sent off at the age of 8 to marry the Holy Roman Emperor, and he died when she was still quite a young woman. She came back and found herself very quickly being first in line to rule the throne of England after her brother died in the White Ship disaster. However, this unfortunately never came to pass, as when her father Henry I died, Matilda was in France waiting to give birth to her third child, during which time her cousin Stephen of Blois took the throne of England for himself, which was the event that began a generation-long fight between Stephen and Matilda in what later became known as the Anarchy. If you watched my July wrap-up part 1, you'll have seen me ranting at length about the life of Matilda and all of the hardships that she had to endure, and just, yeah, I'm still not over it. It's been 900 years and I'm not over the fact that we didn't have Queen Matilda. But I just found reading about her life so incredibly interesting, and I loved the way that Catherine Hanley really delved into the historical record and interrogated these sources and really dug into why these medieval chroniclers said the things that they said about her, what incentive they had maybe to depict her in a way that might not necessarily have been true. And I feel like I've been able to really appreciate her interrogation of these sources a lot more because I recently read Alison Weir's Queens of the Conquest biography, in which she didn't really delve into these sources. She just kind of took it for fact, everything that these medieval chroniclers were saying that were bad about Matilda. And maybe it's because I'm very biased towards her, but I felt like there was so much lacking in her analysis of this history. But yeah, it's really cemented for me how much I really adored this biography. And I know that medieval history is not for everybody, but I would urge you to please give this a try. So those were my two big recommendations of books that I read during summer, and now on to everything else. And I feel like what is more appropriate to talk about in this time but masks! Yay! I bet you've not been able to get enough of these guys. So back in July it was officially enforced that you must wear a mask in shops, even though I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people still flouting that rule. I don't know why. And because I hadn't really been going out and about much whilst we were in lockdown, and I certainly wasn't really going into shops at all, I hadn't yet invested in a proper cloth mask. I'd just been using the disposable ones as and when I needed them. However, I did eventually decide that it was time, and I went onto Etsy and found these two lovely guys. These came from a seller called Katie Crafts Boutique, which I will link down below. She has loads of lovely designs. And if you know me very well, you will know that I'm a big fan of a blue floral print. So when I saw these, had to snatch them up. I've just been looking very, very matchy, going around with like my blue floral bag with my blue floral mask. You know, we love a bit of coordination here. I also managed to appeal to my mum to finally pick up a cloth mask by appealing to her nostalgia and hoarder tendencies. No, I basically pointed out to my mum that in a few years' time, my 2-year-old niece is probably going to come up to us and ask us, you know, about this big historic event that was 2020, and do we have anything that we can show her from that time period? And obviously, we've not taken any photos of this time because we've been stuck inside. And I pointed out the great idea, which was that if you've got a physical thing that you can show her from the time, aka the masks that you wore during this pandemic, you know, these are historic artifacts. This is my public history degree really coming into its own. I guarantee you that somebody at some point down the line is going to write their undergraduate history dissertation on masks. And if you've just been using disposable ones, number one, not as good for the environment. Number two, you won't have any historic evidence to show them. So, you know, masks. Woo! And of course the actual more legitimate reason to wear a mask, which is that it's safer for everybody, you know? Next up are some clothing favourites from the last few months. Now, you'll probably have seen on my channel, if you've been watching for a little while, that I recently made a couple of purchases to Coynie clothing. I have been an admirer from afar of Coynie clothing for quite a while, and I've just never plucked up the courage to pick anything up because I'm not a really big fan of online shopping, at least not for clothes. I'm much more of an in real life clothes buyer. I like being able to try stuff on. I like being able to like touch the fabric of the clothing, hold it up to me, kind of gauge for myself what size I think I'm going to be. And you know, it's all guesswork, especially with women's clothing when it comes to what size you're going to be. And because Coynie clothing are entirely online, I've always just kind of put off buying stuff from them, even though I love the look of their clothes, just because I can't be bothered buying something and then having to return it. Especially because when I did discover their clothing, I was at university and ain't no one got time for that. And whilst I'm a big fan of clothes, I will often go quite a long period of time without buying anything. And you know, during lockdown was a perfect excuse to not buy clothes. However, like I say, I will go months and months and months without buying any clothes, but when I do, I tend to buy a lot of clothes at once. That's kind of my cycle, is nothing for months and then boom, loads of clothes. And you might have seen the video that I did where I hauled my first order of Coynie clothing. But if not, I have a couple of my favourite pieces here that I will show you now. First off, the one that you will have seen in that initial order was this dinosaur dress. Oh, look at it in all its glory. I don't know if the camera quite picks up the colour, but it is just this beautiful, like, dark foresty, bottle green kind of colour. It's buttoned all the way down. It has a tie at the waist for that cinch-in life, which I love. You know, you can dress it up, you can dress it down. I mean, what more could you ask for? And my other favourite dress that I picked up in a later purchase was this gorgeous star dress. This one I actually didn't pick up from the store itself. I actually ordered this from Depop after I saw somebody selling it secondhand. This is a design that I think they had last year and it's now no longer available. Got this like gorgeous vintagey looking collar. It's got stars and moons and the occasional planet, another tie at the waist and buttons all the way down. And yeah, I think you'll probably have seen this in quite a few videos. I love this dress so much. But yeah, I'm a really big fan of Coynie clothing. I love how they mix kind of the vintage silhouettes and styles with slightly more modern patterns and colours. In fact, the dress I'm wearing right now, this little cat dress, is also from there. So big fan. I'm really glad that I did finally take the plunge and picked up a few of their clothes. And next up we are going into film, TV, YouTube, you know, things to watch with your eyes, yay. And to be honest with you, we've not got too much for film and TV. Yeah, I've just really not been watching that much film and TV. I've barely touched my Netflix account, so give me some recommendations, anybody, especially recommendations for costume dramas, because I have recently discovered that Netflix have taken off Emma 2009, the BBC Emma from Netflix, and I am fuming. But yeah, the most TV that I've really been watching is most nights me and my mum will sit down just before bed and we will watch an episode of Tenable and then we'll watch an episode of Would I Lie to You? Great educational, cultural touchstones right there. I've also just recently started watching the TV adaptation of Wolf Hall, which is currently just the one season and covers the events of Wolf Hall and Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel, but I do hear that they are going to bring it back to adapt The Mirror and the Light, and I am so excited to see that. But yeah, like I say, not too much for TV. A lot of my watching recently has been YouTube. I recently recommended a few booktubers, so I will link those down below. All of the videos I'm actually going to recommend to you are not booktubers, so Ooh. So first up we have Biographics. Biographics is a history channel run by Simon Whistler, where they do 20 to 30 minute history videos on a particular subject. Usually, predictably, it is about a person. It is the biography of somebody's life. Though occasionally Simon will delve into one particular event. Recently, there's been a lot more of a focus on pandemics. So recently he talked about the Black Death and the Spanish influenza. Like I say, he posts 20 to 30 minute videos twice a week, so lots of historical content to really sink your teeth into. I find them really informative, really engaging. You can tell that they put loads of research into them, but at the same time we're able to summarize into a short video the entire life of somebody. As we know, I've gotten into a bit of a historic fashion, historic dress kick, and that's kind of extended into costumes from films. So I think film costume design has always been a big love of mine, and I found a couple of channels recently that really cater to my love of film costume. I recently have really been loving Mariah Patty's videos, particularly her recent videos on the 2020 adaptation of Emma. She released 2 videos really delving into the costumes of the 2020 Emma, and if you've seen 2020 Emma, oh my goodness, the costumes in that film. I basically just turned into the heart eyes emoji all the way through that film. Oh, mwah. And if you want a whole hour dedicated to analysing that film and the costumes and just picking over every single detail and, you know, how something was historically accurate and, I highly, highly recommend it. It is a great use of your time. The first video just kind of gives you a general overview of Regency fashion and the history that they were trying to evoke in the film. The second video is a scene-by-scene breakdown of every item of clothing that Emma wears, and it is glorious. If you are a fan of the 2020 adaptation of Emma, or if you're just a Regency fashion nut, then I definitely recommend watching those videos because it will give you so much to mull over and just heart eyes again. On a slightly similar bent, we have the Modern Girls channel. This is another channel dedicated to the costume of film, but this time it is more geared towards what I guess you would call like chick flicks. It is predominantly focused on 90s and noughties teen films. A bit of Disney, a bit of costume drama, but like I say, predominantly it's 90s and early noughties. You've got your Clueless, you've got your Legally Blonde, you've got your Cinderella story, you've got Sex and the City. If you are a fan, or even if you're not really that big a fan, if you've got strong opinions on any of those movies and the costumes in them, I think you'll really, really love this channel. I think my favourite videos from this channel include the How Sex and the City changed noughties fashion, and then also a ranking video where she ranked 10 different Cinderella dresses from the original 1950s Cinderella all the way up to The Slipper and the Rose, to a Cinderella story, all the way up to the recent 2015 adaptation, which is obviously the best Cinderella dress. Like, have you seen the others? Like, there's no contest. Next up we have the Sideways YouTube channel. This channel basically breaks down music from a lot of film and TV and sometimes musical theatre. And I specifically wanted to mention their recent Les Mis video, which was basically like a good 40 minutes of him ranting about the 2012 Les Mis movie and how horrendous the live on-set singing was in that movie. Ugh. As somebody who is a massive, massive fan of the musical Les Mis, I was very, very excited when the 2012 movie was announced. I was so excited, especially for there to be like this big mainstream movie that everyone was going to go see. Like, all my friends were going to go see it, people who had previously not been all that into stage theatre before. And the first time that I saw Les Mis in the cinema, I was really swept away, you know, with the fact that I was finally getting to see one of my favourite musicals of all time on the big screen. However, the further away that I've gotten from that first initial watch, the more I've just been like, oh, the singing in that movie is really bad, isn't it? Like, if your introduction to Les Mis, the musical, was through the movie and you didn't like it and you've never seen anything else to do with Les Mis, I highly, highly encourage you to change that. Please, please, please. While the aesthetics of the 2012 movie are pretty good, like the singing, the music is just, it's not there, man. And the Sideways video really breaks down everything that went wrong in the movie and really breaks down and interrogates why this choice to have it be live singing, forcing their actors, a lot of whom were not already, you know, trained professional singers. Some of them were, but a lot of them, you know, it was kind of their first big singing project, was really unhealthy and led to a lot of the singing being just not very good. Especially when you hear like side-by-side comparisons of how it is meant to be sung, you know, in like concert versions or in the actual stage show to the film. It's just, you can't unhear it. And it's a video that, as a big musical theatre fan, I've just watched and rewatched over and over and over again. If you're not into musical theatre, and especially if you're not into rant videos, it might not be for you, but I like a good rant every now and then, especially when it's something I care about. Going away from the ranty side, we have Lindsay Ellis's recent video about Titanic and why Titanic has been dealt a really bad hand when it comes to criticism. Why Titanic is not as bad as everybody seems to say that it is, and in fact that it is a pretty good film actually. And I was delighted because Titanic is one of my favourite films of all time, definitely like top 10 films of all time. I know that it is 3 hours long, I know that it is kind of overdramatic, but I don't care. I love it. I have loved it since I first watched it at age 6. If it is on TV, it does not matter what point of the film it is at, I will sit down and watch the whole thing. The story, the costumes, the romance, the effects, oh, that film just works so well for me. So when I found out there was like a massive backlash against the movie because of how popular it was, there were so many people flocking to be like, actually, it's not really that good, and don't you know that Rose and Jack could definitely have fit on that door? No, they could not have fit on the door. I will go to my grave saying that they would not fit on that door. They show it in the movie. They show both of them trying to rest on the door and it doesn't work. Oh my god. I'm fine. And yeah, it is basically a 45-minute analysis of the film and the criticism and backlash that it faced, and whether or not that was actually deserved, and she comes to the conclusion that no, it really, really wasn't. Once again, another video that, even though it is 45 minutes long, I have watched and rewatched over and over again, because I love Lindsay and I love her analysis of film. And last but not least, we could not talk about media from the last few months without talking about Hamilton. I would have brought my programme, but it's trapped right where my two bookcases meet. So we've got my music instead. So Hamilton came to Disney Plus, and it is the best thing that has happened in my life. So you probably know that I'm a big fan of Hamilton, you know, from the multiple videos that I have done about it, and the fact that I've mentioned many times that I wrote my dissertation on it. So when it was announced that not only was it coming to Disney Plus, but that they had pushed it forward from like September, October 2021 to July 2020. I was so hyped. And because in the past I have been really fortunate that I have been able to see Hamilton live on stage. Not the Broadway cast, of course, I've seen the West End a few times, but I knew going into it that I was gonna love it. I think a lot of people who hadn't seen the stage show were kind of worried that it wasn't gonna be as good as they'd hyped it up in their head. Thankfully, most people that I have seen have absolutely loved it. I knew going into it that I was gonna love it and that it would live up to all my expectations. The only thing that was gonna be different was I was seeing a completely different cast. I was getting the opportunity to see the original Broadway cast do their thing, and oh, I've been actually very restrained with the amount of times that I have rewatched Hamilton now. I mean, the set, the costumes, the songs, the dancing, Leslie Odom Jr. Oh, it's so good. It is so good, guys. The only reason that I am not constantly watching Hamilton is because I don't want to annoy my parents. It's just absolutely fantastic. It is my favourite thing that I have gotten to see this year, and it made the process of being stuck at home all the time so much more enjoyable than it could have been. If you are new to Hamilton and you are considering watching it on Disney Plus, I would definitely recommend putting subtitles on as a first-time watcher. Because it is a rap hip-hop musical, it is a show that has like 3 times as many words to a normal standard musical, so it's definitely worth putting the subtitles on. It's just such a multi-layered show, and I feel like every time I watch it, I focus in on something different. It's something that does have this immense rewatchability, and I think that's why I love it so much. And actually saying that, it has been a little while since I rewatched it, so I think I know what I'm doing tonight. So yes, that has been my little impromptu summer favourites video. I hope this has been somewhat enjoyable for you. I know it's different to my normal content, not as many books being talked about here. I actually thought this was going to be a slightly easier and shorter video to film because I wasn't trying to do like big analysis of books and trying to recap the content and do all of that. But actually, because I'm not used to talking about YouTube videos and about dresses and film and stuff, I found it a little bit harder to kind of navigate. So I'm really hoping that I am able to cobble together something that is somewhat watchable and makes some sort of sense to you. Do let me know some of your summer favourites. I'd love to hear from you, the film, TV, YouTube videos, anything else miscellaneous that have really been getting you through the last few months. I'd love to hear from you. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.